Hi everyone. So today I wanted to do a mod update for the butcher shop. That's going to be the main thing of this video. There's one other thing I wanted to point out though. My last video I released my Milmon non-dairy factory, and I used a lot of the silk products in here. These silk products were brought over, and I forgot to mention this. They were brought over. I kind of omitted this, not on purpose. We kind of all share stuff within the SGA, but I did not mention that the person that did these, that converted these over, was T. Miller. The silk factory, or the soy milk factory, has been around since like FS15, but he's the one that kind of did the legwork on this. His name is T. Miller 63. I'm going to put his link down in the description below. But he I, he had made he had made a silk factory for FS25 too, and he used one of the same dairy building that I used in my dairy extended. So I didn't want to. I'm kind of a big stickler on not reusing the same buildings, like myself personally. That's why I decided to make my own, the non-dairy one here, and use this building because we hadn't used this for anything, and I added different products to it, and I also adjusted the amounts of what each one of these takes. Like for instance, the different grains and the field crops that go into these, I increased them from what he had them set at, and only because I kind of wanted to make sure that we were using more of those products in here. I mean, really, this whole thing is always just kind of a crapshoot, for lack of a better word, to kind of decide like how much goes into what products. It's really like just kind of like taking a guess on that. And then the other thing that's kind of a crapshoot, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, it's I thought we should have just had more of the actual field products in here, which is kind of why I made the changes that I did with this. Plus, I added in the pea milk and the rice milk with that too. So, alright, so the main purpose of this video today was I wanted to do an update to the butcher shop because I have a couple things that I figured out on here. So, the first thing on the butcher shop is that people quickly pointed out in the comments, and I didn't even realize this because I didn't even test it with the different ages here. So you notice that we had set the minimum ages and the maximum ages, and there's supposed to be a message, animals too young or too old, when you try to put in an animal with that's one of the other. And what we found out quickly was from people commenting that if you try to put in an animal, like, a lot of people would do them too young just because, and what would happen is it would throw a Lua error. It wouldn't give you that message, it would just throw a Lua error. And I found out what the reason is behind that and how to fix it. So basically what we're going to do for that is we're going to edit the L10N file. And what it was, and I tested it already with the animals too young, and I wanted to leave this on here to show everybody what the problem was. So the animals being too old, so it says here this animal is too old, the maximum age of %S will be accepted. So that %S is supposed to be getting the maximum age of the animal as listed in the XML file here, whether it's, whether you're doing pigs at 14 months or 30 a cow or whatever. So that was the problem right there. It was the script, for whatever reason, is not getting that number on here. And I don't know if this, I took a look at this with the Hoff-Bergman map that just came out, and he has it exactly the same, and I didn't go and want to test it in the Hoff-Bergman map. I did post on GTX's page about this, and it's been about 2 months now, and he hasn't responded. So again, I kind of decided last night, like, hey, let's take a look at this, see if we can figure it out. So that is the problem right there. The script, for whatever reason, cannot get that number. So all I simply did was, just like here, I just removed that part of the script. So this animal is too old, period. And it's not going to tell you. Billy had made that really nice sign on the side of it, on the side of the building. So if you want to know how old the animal needs to be, you can just do that. So, and it's weird because, not weird, but these other ones here where it says animals are successfully moved to the %S, those are working. It's just not the too old or too young stuff. So again, I'm going to save that and then use that there. and then that way these should now work, and they will not give you a Lua error when they are too young or old. It's just going to come up with that dialog box with it's like kind of an orange thing with an exclamation point saying you cannot unload these here, and again, there will be no more errors for that. So that'll fix that. The other thing with this too is that this, because of the way this script works here, this doesn't auto distribute the animals to, or the meat products I should say, to their new, to a factory or whatnot. So Billy made a trigger that will auto distribute those, and I'll find a link. He probably has a link on his Trello page to that. So I'll find that and put that in there, so that way if you wanted to make it so that those, because what you can do is you mount the trigger right on top of the animal output trigger, and then they'll go into a place where they can then be distributed to somewhere. And because of the way this script was written, that's why it won't distribute to it. GTX has a new way to like either auto deliver or auto sell, and it's like it kind of eliminates the distributing of the factories the way that they're normally done. So that's that. The other thing, and I'll show you this in game here in a minute. The other thing that I did here was I also increased the prices. I had a comment on on this last video that the prices for this were just too low. And so what I did was I increased the prices. I didn't quite double them. Like this was 0.65, so I went up to 0.85 on like the steak, for instance, and then 0.75. I basically went up by zero point 0.2 on all these, so it's going to go up by a decent amount. Like I said, I didn't quite double it, but I went up by quite a bit with that. So let's kind of play around with that and see how that works. And if anybody else has any comments about like the prices of these being too low or maybe too high, probably not too high at this point, but let's put a comment down below and we'll take a look at them. I mean, again, the other thing that I was talking about earlier with stuff being a crapshoot, this is also a crapshoot, because getting the price per liter of stuff is really, I mean, if you wanted to do this right, I don't think anybody does it right. I don't care who you are or whatnot. Nobody, in my opinion, does this right. I think what you have to do, if you wanted to get a true price per liter of products, I think what you'd have to do is you would have to look at like the base game products that make up like the different, and I don't know how you're going to do it with the meat here, but on a different product, say you're making like a wheat bread or whatnot, you look up the different base products and you see like what wheat's price per liter is, and you kind of try to figure out, okay, so it's wheat and yeast, and then you kind of try to figure out like based on that what you take 40% of that to go into that, and then that your price per liter should be, this kind of based on the amount that goes in plus a little bit extra for actually doing the job. And then because then you also have production costs and whatnot. So again, I think you could sit and figure it out, but again, I work full time. I don't have the time to sit and figure out and go through, because you would have to go through. We have so many mods now, and from all the different guys that are making them, from me to Billy to like I said, T. Miller mentioned him earlier, and all these other people that are making these mods and setting these prices, it would be impossible to go and do those and set those for what they should be. So that's just kind of my little rant on the different prices here. And again, hopefully with this adjustment here, it'll make it a little bit more worthwhile to make the meat instead of just actually selling the animal. So, and then, you can sell the meat of it. All right, so that is that. So I wanted to show you the butcher shop now with the unload here. So I do have a truck and trailer over here loaded with pigs. So what I did was I went to the the animal dealer, and I bought pigs, just age 0. So I'm gonna try to unload these here now, and you're gonna see what happens. So we're gonna try to move these here. So do you want to move, and you can see that, do you want to move these animals to the butcher shop? So you're going to move to butcher shop, and it comes up with that orange red, kind of like a orange reddish circle with an exclamation point. The animal is now too young. So the animal is too young. So that's what's going to come up now, and you can see that there are no more errors in the log for that. So at least that takes care of that problem. And as far as everything else, I think, and again, here's the sign over here, which will tell you what the ages of those should be. So if you brought the animals over here, 6 months for a pig. So, Anyway, I believe that'll do it for today's update. So, as always, version 1.1 of this is down in the description. I always keep using the same. Google Drive lets you overwrite the files with the same link. So, I always use the same link for all my files. Like, once I put out like the butcher shop or the map or whatnot, it's always the same link. I just go and update it, and that way I'll just overwrite the link. So that way that when you guys download it, it has the new version in there. So this will be version 1.1, and I think that'll do it for today. So thank you everybody for watching, and have a good one.